I'm Howie with Hobie, and we're gonna walk through the installation process of installing an Elite 7 Ti from Lowrance with a Totalscan transducer using the Hobie Guardian Revolutionary Transducer mount. I've already removed the Guardian plate from the bottom of the boat by unscrewing these screws holding the plate to the brass inserts molded into the boat. I've also taken off the flat plate here that comes factory installed, and I'm gonna install the scooped plate. We'll be mounting a Totalscan, which will sit externally on here and be protected by this nose scoop. So you can find this in your owner's packet and follow along. The scooped plate will install from the inside of the plate. So just simply slot it in, drop it into place, and you're gonna reuse the 2 screws that you removed to release the flat plate from the bottom of the Guardian. Now the next step in the process is going to be using the transamount bracket included with your Fishfinder to create holes for mounting the Totalscan transducer. There's screws included with your Lowrance product that will be used to through bolt through the plate and into the brass inserts in the transducer. To create the holes for mounting a Totalscan or other side imaging transducers that use through bolting hardware, invert the mounting plate that comes with your Lowrance and push it snugly against the scoop here. And you'll mark just the 4 back holes and use those holes to secure the transducer. So I'm gonna line it up nice and straight and make sure that it's flush with the nose scoop. And I'm gonna mark my drill spots here. And I'm gonna go in with a 532 bit and drill my mounting holes here. The next step is to thread the entire length of the transducer cable through the opening of the nose scoop on your Guardian plate. For through bolting the Totalscan transducer or other side imaging transducers using this mounting method, you'll use the included lock washer and stainless screw for mounting. So first the lock washer on the screw, and then make sure the threaded inserts line up with the holes you created in the Guardian. And I like to start them just finger tight and thread them in partially. That way I can kind of shift the transducer around to make it easier to install the other screws. One thing you'll need to remember before you start the transducer installation process, you want to remove this plate that's covering the scupper hole above the Guardian. Removing this plate will allow you to feed the entire length of the transducer cable up through the scupper hole so that you can route it in the hole and then back out again in front of the seat. So you can remove that and just kind of let it fall through there, that's fine. Now that we've got our Totalscan mounted on the Guardian plate, we can feed the cable through the scupper above the Guardian mount and just pull it all the way through. One critical step when installing a Totalscan or any other side imaging transducer is that you'll need to activate the retractability feature on the transducer mount. So to do that, you'll untie this factory tied knot and retie it around this bridle. That'll give you control inside the cockpit for raising and lowering the Guardian plate. I've just tied a double overhand knot, and it helps right here to grab a pair of needle nose pliers or something like that and pull on the tag end of the knot so to snug it up. So now that you're all bridled up, make sure that this knot sits at the center of the bridle, kind of even with these posts right here. Then you can invert the transducer mount and secure it to the bottom of the boat with these 3 screws here. Again, I like to manually do these with a simple screwdriver to make sure I don't cross thread or over thread into the inserts. Once you're finished up underneath the boat, you want to do a quick check that this pulley line is routed correctly. So it should come out of this hole and route from the wide end of the plate up over the top of the pulley and then exit down on the other side of the pulley closest to the screw hole and go straight down to the bridle. I'm gonna leave this loose for now until I get all the cable threaded through this 3-way plug and inside the hole. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 3 screws fastening the 3-way plug to the opening. Included with your owner's packet will be a bunch of rubber fittings, so you want to find the one that fits around the transducer cable snugly and won't let any water in once it's closed up. And then the next step is to take the gasket off the bottom of the 3-way plug and put that over the plug of the transducer cable and bring it all the way down here below where you've installed this rubber fitting. Slip the lipped side of the gasket over the plug first and pull it all the way down, all the way below the transducer cable fitting that I installed on the wire. Go ahead and open the center hatch, feed the cable all the way through, and then go ahead and pull the entire length of the cable. So I've removed the solid plug from the 3-way plug, and I'm just gonna go ahead and slip our 3-way plug assembly over that rubber fitting around the transducer cable, line it up with the gasket and the pre-drilled holes, and then these small screws will go in, and you want to fasten this down snugly but not too tight. You don't want to compress the gasket too much. Once you've finished that, you can fasten this plate into place. That'll prevent things like weights and soft plastic baits going down into the cavity. Once you're finished running the transducer cable that far, you can go ahead and set up your power supply cord. So I'm using Hobie's Lithium Fishfinder installation kit in combination with the power cable that's included with the Elite 7 Ti. Opening up the Fishfinder installation kit, you find some extra wire, a battery holder, and lastly, the Aqua lithium battery. One thing you'll want to be sure of is that you wire the included fuse with your Lowrance in line with the red wire coming from the power plug. So to wire up the fuse, I'm just using these orange Hobie waterproof wire connectors. You may have to take a little bit of the extra casing off the wire for the fuse box to get it to fit into the waterproof wire connector. So I've done that. I'm gonna feed it up in there. I like to take a pair of needle nose pliers and compress this just until you get a little bit of the dielectric grease to ooze out. That's how you know you've got a nice watertight connection. I'm not gonna need to utilize any of the extension wire for my project because I'm just going from right in front of the seat to the sail mast receiver where I'll mount my battery. But if you were running a battery back to the back of the boat or somewhere else where you need some extra cable, you've got it. So my next step now is to take the plug component out of the packaging that comes with the Aqua. And the same steps will apply if you're using one of the Hobie 12-volt batteries as well. But this is a nice lightweight option. Give it a squeeze until you get some dielectric grease oozing out of there. So now you have your fuse wired in line with the hot wires. And the next step is to connect the ground wires. So one last Hobie waterproof plug. And you can kind of coil this up, tidy it up and zip tie it as you prefer. Now that you've got your power cable all set up, you're ready to remove the 3-way through-hole plug in front of the seat next to the mat pocket on either side, and you can choose to have your cables exit the hole on either the left or right side, depending on your preference. I prefer my Fishfinder head unit to sit on the right-hand side of the boat because I'm right-handed and it allows me to easily manipulate the functions on the unit. So just take a screwdriver and unthread the 3-way plug, just like you did above the Guardian. You may have foam inserts in your boat sort of blocking your pathway to this hole here. And so if you do, you can just push it back farther back in the hole to give you nice access there. So I like to run the power cable through and take about 10 inches of cable out. I'm gonna do the same thing with my transducer cable. But before I do so, I'm gonna coil it up nicely and put a zip tie around it so it stays. Snip the tag to finish it off. And you'll wanna push this bundle of wire to one side of the boat or the other so you can allow for the drop-in hatch to still sit properly. I've found the individual through-hole fittings that match the diameter of each the power cable and the transducer cable. The transducer cable is slightly heavier in gauge than the power cable, so you need slightly different sized plugs. Slip the gasket over the head of both of the plugs, slide it down past the through-hole fittings, remove 2 of the plugs from the 3-way plug. So one there, and kind of push it up from the bottom. The other one there, push them up snugly through the bottom, and then gently feed the cable in, match the gasket up to the template. The easiest way I've found to approach this is to come under the rail with a screwdriver, and you have pretty good access there. I'm gonna go ahead and house my Fishfinder battery in this Hobie battery holder that will come inside the Fishfinder installation kit. And it's got this 2-part clamp on the back of it for attaching to the sail mount inside the front hatch of the kayak. I prefer to zip tie the wire connectors and the fuse components up high on the sail mast, up off the floor of the kayak. That way nothing's ever sitting in water in the event you do get a little bit of water inside the hole. And I leave the plug short enough so when it hangs, it's not on the floor of the kayak. Go ahead and slip the Velcro top of the Naqua over the frame of the battery holder and back into place. And then you've got your plug end exposed here. Just gonna pull out a little bit more length so I can access it. And then what you'll wanna do, there's a small black tab, an alignment tab on that male end of the plug. Make sure that aligns with the recess on the female end of the plug, and that you screw the cap on to make that a watertight connection. The last phase of the installation is mounting the head unit to your kayak. To do that, I'm using a ram trackball that's available through Hobie Parts and Accessories, and I'm also using a ram Elite 7 Ti Fishfinder mount that snaps into the back of the head unit. The new Outback conveniently has track built into the top of the H-rail, so you can either choose to insert your ram ball there and tighten it down so it's closer to the center of the cockpit, or you can come outboard to the H-Track Deluxe and mount it there. Go ahead and snap the head unit onto the mount until it clicks into place. And I like to tilt it down so that I can see my plugs clearly. Align the tabs on the plug, screw the cap into place. With the addition of a side scan transducer mounted to your Hobie Guardian, you're gonna wanna familiarize yourself with how to retract and deploy the Guardian shield. So there's a T-handle inside the cockpit on the left-hand side, or the port side of the kayak, that's labeled transducer. Simply pull that back toward the seat to cleat the transducer in the retracted position, and then pull it quickly back into the center of the boat to release it and deploy the transducer so that it can perform with a signal out to the side. That concludes the Fishfinder setup of the Elite 7 Ti using the Hobie Guardian to mount your Totalscan transducer. The beauty of a Totalscan transducer is now you don't just have eyes up and down in the water column, you can see structure and fish out to the sides as well. And with the Hobie Guardian transducer mount, there's no worries of damaging your transducer during loading or transport.